Hello, everyone. Hi, it's Alex and my lovely participants today. I can see, guys, already some attendees joining up live. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being with us on this Thursday evening. We're just going to give it a minute or two for everyone to join live, and then we can start with the amazing topic that we have today. And I can already see that Thursdays work better for you guys because on Friday, it was a bit of a struggle to get you live. I know you were all watching the recordings, but like this is better to have you live so we can, have a real discussion with you as well. Cool. So in a minute, we're going to start the topic. As you know, the topic is about work and life balance. I think it's a nation topic, honestly, because everyone is discussing that everywhere I go. On all of the events that I've been visiting, like there is a huge discussion about it, but the question is, should we even discuss it anymore? I remember one of them, founder at one event asked me, like, really, should we be discussing this like anymore, or should we just leave work and life to coexist? And that's a question to all of you here on this webinar. My speakers, we're going to discuss a lot of questions and topics about it, but actually to all of you who are attending here live, make sure you leave some comments about it. Should we be discussing work and life balance, or should we just leave them coexist and make some strategies around that? And I can see like lots of people already here, so we can perhaps start, guys. Thank you very much, first Domenico, Maya, and Daniela, for accepting to be the speakers on this live webinar about work and life balance. Much appreciated. And to start with, I won't introduce myself anymore because I'm not really interesting today on this webinar, because I have people who have real experience about this, who have mastered this, I hope so. Or if not, they're going to share why not and how to. I'm going to leave a couple of minutes, guys, to you to introduce yourself to our attendees of the webinar today. And perhaps, Maya, we can start with you.
That's a pleasure.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Well, first of all, let me address the idea that I've mastered work-life balance. I would never dream of claiming that in any way, shape, or form. I've been juggling with this one, working remotely for 25 years now, and I still won't claim to have mastered it, even though I've gone through being an employee, being an entrepreneur, being a freelancer, doing it with young children around, doing it through pandemics, through relocations, through migrations, through different things. And it's still a dynamic balance that we always have to seek out, I think, which is why it's such a perennially interesting subject to discuss. And I do disagree with the person who told you we don't need to talk about it anymore, because we definitely do. It's easy for founders to say they think they've got it sorted, but not everyone's a founder. People bring different expectations and experiences to work. So what am I bringing to it? Well, say an awful lot of years of doing this, living like this. Right now, I'm a freelance journalist, and podcaster, and content creator. I've written several books on remote work, including one on boundaries, which might be something that we touch on today. I host the Future is Freelance podcast, and I run the Remote Work Europe communities, which is a network of communities growing mainly on Facebook at the moment. So very interested in the whole remote work scene, freelancing, and anything to do with the future of work, really, which all of this feeds into, because I think a lot of these issues about balance come from the fact that work is changing so fast and affecting the ways that we live, where we choose to live. We have more choice and flexibility than ever before, but that means we have to be even more intentional, and in some ways there's even more that can go wrong. So yeah, we need to keep talking about it, at least for the next hour.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you very much. Maya, pleasure to have you here, as I mentioned before. Daniela, let's hear about you, and then we can go to Domenico as well.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Alex. So yes, I'm Daniela. I've been working in native teams for quite some time. So I've been freelancing remote worker for 6+ years, maybe more. So this is a thing. I think it's a great topic because we were having the same issues to say that the freelancers are having between the about the balance between life and work. So I think that it will be amazing. So as a people person, I must say that that we're gonna discuss more about how we can help freelancers, how to balance their both life and work. And yeah, hopefully it will be a good webinar. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. And Domenico, hi.
Hi everyone, my name is Domenico, or Dom. You can also call me Dom. Very much on the same lines as Maya. I think work-life balance is a continuous journey. It's not something you master and then you put a certificate up and you know how it's done. It's very much like being on a diet and being active and doing sports. You know, the minute you drop the ball, you're lost. But yeah, speaking of which, I've been working in this phase of the future of work, of remote work, of productivity, high performance leadership, anything really with the work future for over 8 years now, since I've been coaching and running my own consultancy. In the time, I've also experienced working remotely by not being location dependent. So in the old way, being a consultant and traveling to clients. And then 2.5 years ago, I transitioned to being location dependent and working predominantly remote, as well as my whole team fully remote, dispersed across continents. Same with clients. So yeah, it's something that I'm very passionate about. And work-life balance is such a big topic for me. It's also part of the book I published in April, which is called The Great Shift, which is a book about mindset, work-life balance, and the future of work.
Well, that's amazing. I think we all might benefit from reading that book. So when you want, please share the link where we can find the e-version of the book in the chat. I think it's open for you to share it there. And I think all of you guys and myself will be very, very much interested in it, just to learn something more about work and life balance when it comes to remote work, because I think most of us here are actually remote workers to start with. So in order to start touching upon a couple of points that we have about the topic of the webinar, my colleagues from marketing actually gave us a couple of questions which are going to be just a guidelines for us in which ways to conduct the conversation. But I will start with a question to you, Maya, but Domenico and Daniela, of course, if you want to, start a conversation about it or share your opinion, feel free to do. The first one is, why is it hard for us as people, I would say, not only as freelancers, but especially for freelancers to manage the work and personal life, especially when working, let's say, with people from different countries as freelancers, as remote workers? Why is it hard?
Why is it hard to work in that way? Well, I think when it comes to work-life balance, if you're collaborating internationally, it's taking another usual boundary away because you have people working across different time zones. You might be working very asynchronously, which is a great way to collaborate when you're not co-located and you're not in real time together. But that can mean also that you don't manage your own expectations in terms of your availability and response times and so on. Even if you're asynchronous, that doesn't solve that problem. So you need to be very clear what people expect from you in terms of a reply cadence and so on. And are you communicating well enough that they don't need to bug you outside of your boundary times anyway? Obviously, if you're doing that in a workplace, in a team, then you've got somebody coordinating that and leading on that, organizing your documentation, your protocols and so on. If you're a freelancer, you haven't. So it's completely on you to manage your life, to manage your work, and to manage where those things might blur and blend. I don't believe that many of us who end up freelancing don't have that very rigid separation mentality. And I think it's very okay for things to blend to an extent. I think that's the way most of us are comfortable with it. I know in my case, there are certain kinds of work that I only want to do ideally at my desk, but I can do them elsewhere, but in an uninterrupted environment in what I think of as work time. Whereas there are other things I'm quite happy to pick up on my phone in the evenings or wherever and maybe not use 100% of my attention. So that, there are different things that relate to different kinds of activities, different kinds of deliverables, different kinds of expectations. When you're a freelancer, you don't have a line manager to help you figure that out. You don't have an HR to complain to when a client is pushing those boundaries and expecting you to reply to a Slack message in the evening or something. So you have to navigate all of that yourself. You have to reinforce those boundaries yourself. And you have to work out what they are in the first place, but then you have to actually maintain them, police them, and try to keep some kind of a control over all of it, even if at the same time you're acknowledging it's dynamic and it's going to shift as your work evolves, as your business evolves. You might be in that founder phase where you're working 24/7, and then a later stage in your business you might not be, or you might be working with other people who are paid by the hour, and they're not going to have that same expectation. So you have to be realistic about their balance as well. So there are lots of things that as freelancers we have to figure out for ourselves, and we have to keep figuring them out. As Domenico was saying, is you can't just, right, I've done losing weight or I've done getting fit. These things require constant attention. Even if you go through a phase of optimizing them and then hopefully you get it more or less on cruise control in that you know what to do, you still have to keep doing it.
Yeah, that truly makes sense. I mean, we always thought like freelancers, they work on their terms, they work whenever they want to, but actually it's really hard to organize all of your time between work and personal life when you're a freelancer, especially. At least it was for me when I was a freelancer. As you say, I have to manage my own time. I have to manage my own life. There is nobody like telling me what to do when and so on. So I don't know. It's way more enjoyable, but it's way more difficult as well. So completely agreed with your points. Thank you very much. And then the next question would be, guys, what can actually freelancers do to make sure that they have enough time for work, for family, for fun? Like what they can do, some tips, some strategies that you have in terms to help them like realize how much time they have and organize it so they have enough time for work. Perhaps Domenico, I can start with you on this one.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think Maya said the magic word at the beginning today. So boundaries, right? For me is one of the three key words in this matter. The other two would be routine, and I'm the guy that hates routine, but I'll put it out here, and communication, right? And I'll elaborate a little bit. It's really important to establish these boundaries for yourself, for your clients, for who you work with, for your colleagues, for your peers, for your family. So that comes part of that routine, but it's really important to create those boundaries so that okay, this is what I'm doing. Routine. Even if you don't like routine, you can have a loose routine. So I don't like to plan too much, but I have one day always planned, which is my Monday. It's my biggest day. It's also a day that socially usually very little happens. Okay. So I rarely am in the moment that I'm at a new location, I'm somewhere and someone invites me to something on a Monday. So it's a very safe day for me, and it's my packed day. And my routine there is that I'm very busy with that. I also have my routine around the things that are my personal space and my personal life, right? So with that one, that helps me be productive in the times that I do. So my goal here, for me, work-life balance is absolutely crucial to be a high performer. And that goes hand in hand. So I cannot be high performing if I'm not looking after work-life balance. To give a broad example, imagine an athlete that doesn't sleep, goes on a party the night before, right? We all know that performance can just not be the best performance the next day. And we don't do that same comparison in our work lives, but it's pretty much the same. So everything goes hand in hand. And lastly, the communication bit. The communication bit for me is super important because that is what gets us in trouble, not being able to communicate well. And that goes to all those places, the friends, the families, the partners, the work. So when I'm working with clients and I'm taking on some consulting work, that communication part is super important, also to manage expectations, to manage. And what you realize when you really master communication with clients and you ask the simple questions, when do you need this ready by? You sometimes get the answers that you're not expecting, because very often as freelancers, we think we have to jump and we have to deliver now. And even that very often is not the case. It's just an assumption we make. And on the other hand, I've very rarely heard of absolute monsters of partners on the other side that expected you to leave everything behind and do the work 24/7. But we don't often have this conversation. So it's as simple as saying like, yes, I can take this job on. I can do this for you. When do you need it by? I have 2 other client jobs that I'm finishing. I can do this by Wednesday. Is this okay? And you might be surprised what you hear sometimes is like, actually, it's not that urgent. We need it done some stage next week.
Yeah.
So that is really important as well.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I can relate myself in 2 things here. First thing is communication. I see that a lot of people, especially when you are new in something, you just want to grab everything that comes, but then you, I don't know, oversold yourself and you can't deliver, which is not a good thing. But not everyone has that communication skill to say things in a way that I want to do this, but here is when I can do it and so on. But it resonates so much better to the client on the other side of things if you are realistic and if you deliver by that time, compared to just to grab things, as you rightly said, and then get overloaded and deliver bits and bobs from everything, at the end nothing. So completely agree, been there, done that.
In that moment is really important. And if you say, I'm going to get it done by Wednesday, you really do that, because that's the part that then stinks if it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, reliability.
Yes.
Of course. And who else hates routine here? I am afraid of routine, totally afraid that I'm going to get into routines, but I also realize that it's really important, especially when you need to make a balance at life, at work, and any kind of a balance, you have to have routine. So I'm learning not to be afraid of routines, because there actually can be some magic behind routines, believe it or not, guys. And I think, Domenico, you touched really nicely on that topic as well. Thank you very much for that. Dani, you speak with a lot of people on daily basis. That's your job. You get complaints, you get great feedback. You just speak with people and with freelancers as well. So why is it important for them? Like, what have you heard from them? Why it is important for them to take breaks and take care of themselves outside of work?
Definitely. To be honest, is very, very important, even from myself. So I will start to tell you that even when I'm having a work day, I need to take some power nap of 15 minutes just to really just to sleep and to refresh my mind. So it is really important for everyone, not only to take a power nap, but it is also very good to take just to stretch a bit, to take some break, even for a 15 minutes. I can assure that it will change your mind, and you can go back to work and you will be extremely a different person, because you're gonna relax mentally, not only physically. So it will help you a lot. I really do work as an HR, and on daily basis, I'm just, whenever someone is saying I have too much work or something, I'm always saying, go take a break, rest your mind a bit, and you'll see that you're gonna come back and be even more refreshed to work even more harder. So I definitely think that taking a break is really important for people, because really you will feel you will feel difference when you take that. So I'm up for it 100%, really.
Yeah. And is it important for freelancers, like when you speak with them, like, do they have their own strategies, or it's I don't know, up to the company culture as such? Because I know that, I've been in freelancing for years as well before I started with native teams, and it's really different from the company culture. Some companies would say, and clients, not just companies, like clients, if you're working for different clients from different cultures, would say, I need you to work when you're most productive. And some of them would have like strict hours, 9 to 5, and that's it. Productive or not productive, it's on you. What do you think?
Definitely, everyone, even including freelancers, should have that break. This is right now a very crazy time where we all run and have a very, we really do want to finish everything in one day. I really do believe that. But even for freelancers, because they have flexible working hours, they can do their organization and make the break, as I said before, even for 15 minutes. So it's definitely something that everyone, really everyone needs to take a break at least once a day for
Cool.
a
Thank you
few
very much.
minutes. Yeah,
I'll make sure I do that every day.
please do.
Um, Domenico and Maya, you guys mentioned at the beginning you've been in remote work for a couple of years now. How is remote working and freelancing changed over the time? How is it changing, and how can actually freelancers keep up with these changes?
Shall I jump in first? Because I've been remote working a couple of decades, not years, so it's changed a lot. Obviously, the technology has changed. That's the first thing to say in terms of keeping up. There's much more expectation now of continual communication, continual availability, round the clock response times, and so on. However, we could also use that technology in ways that we couldn't to reinforce some of those boundaries. So, just because you do have your phone in your hand all the time, you don't have to answer it. Nobody can book on my schedule for a discovery call in between 10 and 2 in the day, because that's my productive writing, creating time. I don't do meetings then. I'll talk to people in the afternoon because then I can't write so well. So, you mentioned you're scared of routine, Alex. I think routine can be your friend. I think that particularly if you are a freelancer, then you choose your routine. And maybe some of us are scared of having things imposed externally that don't suit us at all. Once you get to know your own rhythms, and you can work with that, and also work with the variety that you need, that you're going to need a rest in the afternoon, or that you need to finish by a certain time, or that here in Spain, I've been knocking off quite early this week because I think it was 39 degrees today. So, there's nothing productive is going to happen in that after a few hours. So I might as well be just reading or consuming rather than creating. So there are lots of things that have changed in terms of the expectations on us. What's expected of freelancing in general. I think there's far, far more acceptance of distance and remote working, of asynchronous working. It's got to the point now where it's a real red flag for me if I see somebody talking about time zones and things, like they want to hire a writer, but you have to be available in it. I thought, well, if I'm writing, why would I be talking to you? I don't mind making the occasional meeting, but it's not reasonable to expect me to be working the same hours as you. And I think we've got to the point in the conversation now, a sophistication of the contracting conversation, that we can be very explicit about deliverables and what people are paying for from a freelancer. It's for a particular output at the end of the day. That might have a hard deadline, it might have a soft deadline, it might have an expectation. All of that can be negotiated, but you're not paying for a bum on a seat. You're not paying for hours logged into an app. You might be paying for a certain amount of meetings or client contact within that. All of that can be quantified. But when I see somebody advertising for a content creator, but they're specifying an hourly rate or something, I just think, no, you don't understand how this works. So I'm not interested in talking to you. You hire me for what I can actually do. When and how long it takes me to do it really isn't your problem. So I think that has changed. That's the conversation has evolved. Whereas when I started freelancing back in the UK a long time ago, it was more about a day rate, or a consulting hourly rate and so on. It was about, we're paying for you because we want to own you, as opposed to nowadays we should be contracting for the deliverables and the outputs rather than the person. It's what they bring to those outputs is what matters.
Yeah, indeed.
I really like your share, Maya. And I think if I can elaborate on that, what I see compared to maybe 8-9 years ago when I started going on my own journey, it's that freelancer was more of a subcontractor, where now we're reaching the point where we're actually freelance. And elaborate on that, and the segue with the day rate or hourly rate is really, really nice on that perspective. I remember when I was contracted at the beginning to do some consulting work, it was okay, you're going to be on this project for us for 3 months. You're going to be on this project for us, Monday to Wednesday, Monday to Thursday. And now we're moving in an area where the sophistication is there, the understanding is there. There is much more education on what freelancers mean. And we're moving away from being a subcontractor with less legalities around it and less power or less optimized things there, but we're moving into a more gig economy and output driven, and hey, this is the job, this is what we need to get done. I need 10 content pieces, I need this to get done. And so we're moving towards that. The second biggest element that I also see is more and more professionals and more senior leaders in senior jobs moving into freelancing. So I look back freelancing 8-9 years ago, with very few exceptions. It was mainly admin, outsourced, a lot of that. And now there's everything.
Yeah.
You can go from being a super senior $1,000 an hour person doing remote freelancing gigs, as well as being your VA or data entry. It's the variation is just all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's wonderful. I
Yes.
think that's beautiful. So yeah, we'll have to talk about work and life balance a lot, as I can see, because as you rightly said, guys, everything is changing. And we should discuss, I think if we discuss this topic every day, we're gonna have different questions and different topics to discuss. Dani, my next question would be for you. How do you suggest any examples of how freelancers should handle situations when they have too much work on the one side and less time, let's say, not enough time to manage everything? Have you had situations like that, and what are the strategies to avoid burnout in such circumstances?
Definitely, I had these situations many times before, but there is not such thing that we don't have enough time. But the really the problem is that we don't know how to organize ourselves. I can tell this by my own experience when I was a freelancer. Why? Because when someone gives me a task, I want to finish everything today. I have a deadline for that task to be finished by the next week, for example, by the end of next week, but I want to finish everything today so I can be free all of the next days. And that's how you really start to build that burnout, to say, because you are working like crazy whole day, 24 hours maybe, just to finish one thing, but it is really it's not healthy. So why I say that, you really need to make really good organization for your work, just to have enough time for your family, for your friends, but also for yourself. I can say that it's really okay to take few hours a day, for example, to work on that task. So please make yourself priorities. What is the most priority task? Focus on that and make sure that you follow that task really natural. So work on those tasks for few days, for a short time, but don't take breaks as well, as I've mentioned above. But you need to make a proper organization so you can have enough time for yourself as well. So I'm sure that there is enough time for every task and every project that you're working on, as if you are organizing that well. So definitely something that you need to avoid burnouts with proper organization for your workday. Make yourself a whole document, sorry, in a way, how you're gonna start your day, what you need to finish by the end of the day, and so on, and make that 4 hours, and you will see that you're gonna see a change in yourself.
Yeah, I will try. I usually
See.
organize myself on a Monday and then lose total control of the day. That's what
I
happens.
do that too. Yeah, sometimes I do that by myself, and then I'm like, okay, I need to calm down. I need to start fresh, and then I'm starting preparing my day. So we really need all of us to organize ourselves much better.
Okay, I'll take that as a thing to work. And Domenico said Monday it's really not a social day, so I should use it better than I am right now. So cool, thanks for the tips. Yeah, I'm gonna try. I don't promise. I'm gonna try, and then perhaps we can talk about that on another event, and you guys try it as well and let me know how it goes. Now a very interesting one, Maya. This one is for you. So freelancers that are also parents, like right now we discussed freelancers and work and so on, but here we add another layer where we have freelancers who are also parents or caregivers. What's the advice for them or your actual personal experience? Like how you're integrating now the family responsibilities into the work routine while ensuring, again, we still have quality time for ourselves and our family now, but also we do quality work for the clients.
That's interesting. I think this really follows on from the previous question. It's about knowing what your total workload is, your total expectation, and then planning your resources and your availability within that. You can't, when you work remotely, when you work around a family, you can't put things in separate buckets. You almost have to treat your family like a client that you really care about and you want to prioritize. They don't pay you, which is a bit strange. But apart from that you definitely want to keep them happy, in the same way that you wouldn't say to one client, well, I can't do your job because of this other client. You have to make each one of them feel like the most important in the world, but actually you internally you're maintaining the whole bigger picture and making sure that you're being fair and meeting the needs of every single one of them, and only you see your entire schedule, because your clients, all clients, want to feel they're the only one in the world, and so do young kids. It's for me, I've reached the point in my life where my youngest child is now technically an adult. I'm still a parent and they're still at home. And of course, they still need you for different things. So that's been very much a process that's changed throughout life. It's the reason I started remote working at the turn of the century in the first place, was so because I couldn't imagine ever being organized enough to leave a newborn baby somewhere else or take them to a childcare or something. I had to start working from home at that point, and that worked very well for me. So they've always seen me work. They've always known that I'm there, but also that I have other stuff going on. So I think they've always learned that distinction. I know a lot of people had, the first time that they had to do this was during the pandemic lockdowns. So, then lots of kids had no experience of that. They had running into meetings and things like that, because whereas my kids, obviously they were a bit older, but even if they hadn't been, they'd always known that if the door was shut, or we had certain stickers on the doors that, this one says mummy's just working, but you can come in if it's important. This one says please don't come in unless the house is on fire. And they learn that expectation. I think they learn a great deal of other things too. They learn about that work is what makes the world go round, to an extent. That work is what pays for the fun stuff. That if you're a freelancer on a deadline, that you have to meet that deadline. Sometimes that means taking on work during what would traditionally be family time, but then they see that connection between reward and effort, that this is going to pay for our nice trip next month and so on. So they start to correlate that in a way that, my dad went out to work every weekday of my childhood. I have no idea what he did. He disappeared out of the door with a briefcase and some special clothes, and went off to be an accountant. I still don't know what he did all day. So my kids, at least, they've never seen that. They know that I'm doing stuff. They can see I'm traveling. They can see I'm taking part in an event, or I'm interviewing somebody. They know that I'm traveling for business. They know that I'm creating, and they've always seen that correlation. So I think kids who grow up in that environment end up understanding it from quite a young age. And they have the reassurance that you're there. You have to make sure you're meeting their needs, though. I'm very lucky in that my partner has a job with a start and an end time and edges. So he's available at certain times when I'm not, and that they know they can go to him. And when they were younger, we had childcarers. We had au pairs in the house when they were little. It means you can have sort of unprofessional childcare of that nature, because you're there on site for an emergency. You don't have to pay for a qualified nanny or something in your house if you're working from home. But it does mean that you're there if anything goes wrong. And it does mean that they have that attention, because obviously your clients don't expect you to be feeding a baby whilst you're conducting an interview with them or something. So a lot has shifted during the pandemic. I think so many people had their first taste of it and really had to adapt their expectations. I loved it during the pandemic as a journalist, because quite often I was talking to quite stuffy startup execs, and their PR was sitting there and they weren't allowed to say anything off message or whatever. And then it was all very formal. And then suddenly a toddler runs in and it all gets so much more human.
Yeah.
There's that kid climbing on their lap in the interview, and finally they're going to say something not on the press release. Not I'm trying to trap them, but just to break that barrier down. It's actually, I'm working from home, you're working from home. Let's just try and get this thing written. And it's a great leveler. An awful lot of us, I think, had that opening, that awakening during the lockdowns, that when people are working remotely, you see much more of them as a human being rather than their corporate side. And that's great for business, that's great for relating. And people do have a context. Most people, whether if they're not working remotely, they still have, an awful lot of people have a family, they have a home, they have responsibilities, they have caring. You don't glimpse any of that. I know people who are full-time employees who said they got to know their colleagues better during lockdown than they did in the years that they shared an office, because that environment was so unpersonal and decontextualized. Whereas actually when they were talking like this, and oh, what's that behind you? And oh, who's that? Oh, you have a cat. And it actually made those relationships much more real and interesting. So I think parents need to think about what they bring to their work as well, what fantastic multitaskers they are from the day you're responsible for another young life. And all of that will make you a better freelancer, a better remote worker, and make you a whole human being. It's certainly nothing to apologize for.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you very much, Maya, for it. It's really what I think everyone needs to hear, because sometimes we just see that as an additional, responsibility as such. So a lot of people would ask me like, about family, about when are you going to start that, and so on and so on. And I usually myself would say, I have too much work now, but I completely get your point now, and it's a change of perspective that we all need to do and accept that as something natural and something human, as you rightly said. And I loved COVID as well. Honestly, it's such a game changer when it comes to remote work and everything. We started accepting everything that wasn't accepted before at work, and I think it's never gonna go the way it was before, which is great news for all of us. But because I also think, like you mentioned, you're at home, you're working, but you also have time for other things which might take 5 minutes. I don't know, like doing the laundry, like before a meeting. I usually do that when I'm, at home, and it's also a work and life balance if you think about it. So happy days on that one as well. So thank you very much for this really great answer to the question that we had for you. Happy to hear that. Domenico, the next one would be for you. How can freelancers actually continue to learn and grow in their field while managing their workload and personal life? Because, for example, us as a company, we also really pay attention on growth when it comes to the people in the company. But how is that in terms of, I want to grow in personally, but also professionally in what I'm doing, but I also want to manage my workload and my personal life?
It's a really big question. It's a very nice question, because very often we get into the rhythm that Daniela was describing earlier. I want to get everything done today, so I'm free tomorrow. And then the next thing comes in. And before we know it, we haven't done any training or any learning ourselves. We haven't taken the breather to continue to grow, because we are in that mode. And again, before we know it, we are out of the market because we are out of date, right?
Yeah.
So that is one of those areas where, for me, that routine comes in. And I'll try to go a little bit deeper this time. So for me, that's part of making a plan and really being aware of what's important and what the priorities are. So I think Alex you mentioning you make a plan on Monday morning. very similar as well. And one of the tools I use with all my clients that we work with is understanding priorities. But when we make a plan about everything. So your laundry is in there, the time to take a break is in there. I really like what Maya said with the mornings are for me for writing. Most of my consulting is done at the beginning of the week. That's when I'm freshest. Most of my coaching is done there. The end of the week is reserved for learning, for updating, for reading, for getting inspired, for writing content. So really understanding a few different things. One is what are all my commitments this week? Because if I know that Sunday night, and I know I've got 2 birthdays, I've got the party, that I want to go, I've got my sports session to make me productive, I need to take a break, and I've got a lot of work. And then on Sunday night, I can sit there and say, okay, this is very tight. There's nothing else I can accept this week. Okay. I can also make a second plan and say, okay, what else, if anything really, really important comes up, where do I cut my time? Because if you don't make the plan, it's going to be your family time, right? Or your sports time, or your recreation time, or your reading time, or your learning time, your growth time, right? Because the impact is not immediately to see. It's something that burns in the long run. So those are the things that we cut. But they're actually quite important if we want to land bigger clients, better clients, and grow and keep our clients happy. So that for me is part of making the plan. And that growth is in there. So we need to really pack in everything in there and understand how it works. And when we look at the whole week as a whole, not just like as work and life, we suddenly start to get a very different picture, and make the plans slightly different. So, that's a part of work that no one else can do for you. That's only you can do that. And this is the part that it's great to see employers like native teams caring about it. You're lucky if you're in one of those, but if you're a freelancer, you're not always that lucky. And very often growth is not paid for freelancers as well. So you need to be aware of that. And that's when you need a plan. At the same time, a lot of startups, when they go through growth in the first year or two, there is budget, there is funding, there is everything. And when something doesn't go to plan, and that growth budget is the one that gets canceled as well. So it always, there's always space to make your own plan. It's also an area I see a big difference between Europe, US, and, for example, Asia, Australia. Europe, US is a countries where people invest quite a bit by themselves into growth. I don't see that much in Australia or in Asia.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much. I totally see your point here, but let's say, as you mentioned, for freelancers, it's not paid to grow and so on, but should they also have like I wouldn't say like mandatory might be like too difficult as a word, but should they be always thinking on, growing their skills and so on and so on? And how do they like manage also their budget, but also their time, which you say? Have you done it yourself? I guess you have to, upskill all these years and so on. How is it working for you? It's just your organization that plays in it?
Well, for me, I've always been focused on that. So I've done every possible thing, and I'm still doing it. Yeah. Now I'm doing a lot more with retreats, with workshops that I attend, getting to the next level, getting some more certification. But it's been part of my DNA. I think it's one of the reasons why I like consulting or coaching that much, because in the consulting world, you always learn new things because you always get new problems and you always have to be up to date. And this area of future work, especially after COVID, is continuously evolving. So I love it. It speaks to me. So for me, that's part of the DNA, and I always reserve a budget. Our employees have a budget. They can access all of our trainings that we do as well. Most of them are qualified in things that we have marketeers qualified in organizational design, organizational behavior, but it really goes a long way when we look at the marketing side of things and we understand what we do. So for me, that's never an issue. Look, it should be done, but the reality is not done. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be realistic here. If you ask me, does it have to be the case? Should it be the case? Yes. And I remember I worked with a big project in Sydney Water in Australia, and their contractors had the same access to education that the employees had. That is great, right? It's brilliant, as you said, but it's an exception. It's not the rule.
Yeah.
It's not what I see on a journey on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly most freelancers have to figure that out for themselves, but you do have to, again, it's what Domenico was saying. Yeah, if you don't schedule it, it's not going to happen. You have to actually block it. If you want to attend a webinar or complete a training course or something, you have to put that on your schedule so nothing else goes in there. You have to look at your whole workload for your week and is this going to happen or is it not? And I suppose that the beautiful thing is freelancing. You can decide what you need to learn, how you're going to learn it, when you're going to learn it. It's not like in a corporate world, you might be sent on a course and expected to somehow absorb something that you might not even be open to taking on anyway. Yeah. As a freelancer, I make it part of my planning quarterly as what do I want to learn this quarter? Treat it like a sprint at the end of, I want to master this. Is this because I need it now, or is this just in case or just in time learning? What's the best way to do that? Is it better to throw some money at it and get a course from someone I trust rather than, yes, it's probably all out there in the wild somewhere and on the internet, but am I going to waste more time? Whereas my time is worth more than it would cost to just go to somebody who can teach me what I need to know about the thing. So I think we need to value learning and professional development in that way. Be prepared to pay for it as a filter. Be prepared to, even things like paying for apps was a revelation for me a couple of years ago. I suddenly realized that you get better quality of service and things that are fixed and updated and not covered in ads. And yeah, if you just pay for stuff, it tends to be better. But then you start to value your own time. It's reinvesting in your business, reinvesting in yourself. And if you want to write and consult about future of work, I would write tech white papers for founders half my age. I have to stay really, really up to date and continually on top of what's happening. And there are just so many ways to do it now as well. The other thing being my age is that when I first started learning a craft, you had to go somewhere. You had to go to a library or a university or something. Now the learning can come to you. It can come with you. A podcast or an audiobook comes with you on a hike in the mountains or something. So there are just so many ways to take on information. You have to filter it and get the right information to start with, but it's all out there. So there's no excuse really not to learn continuously.
Yeah.
And if I get add on that, the beauty is also that you are very much in control. So I remember when I was back in Australia, first years, I was working in a conference production team, creating an event, and we had this great guru coming in from the UK, and he had a workshop, and we were running the workshop, and we had space. We had paid for him to coach, and there was empty space, and I was like, "Can I go and learn this? This is stuff that I can use in my work." And management was like, "No, we've never done this before." So, it was paid, it was available, it was there, and I still wasn't in control of it. Where I remember a conversation I had in band school with one person that would say a peer, as a freelancer, as a remote worker, who was mainly doing content writing over the last couple of years. And he was just, well, at the moment, I'm learning everything about podcasting and podcast management. I think content with AI is going towards this direction, so I'm pivoting towards podcast management. It didn't have to go anywhere and have a conversation with it.
Yeah, didn't need to ask anybody. Didn't need to persuade anybody to give him the budget. He saw it coming and went for it. Brilliant.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Thanks very much, guys. Maya, since we've touched upon a little bit on the, because you're a creator, you've mentioned it a couple of times during this conversation. I was wondering, are there any specific advices for freelancers who are, working with creative blocks? Because I guess that's a little bit also different. When you need to create something, you have to be in the mood for creating, right? So how is this, how should they overcome these burnouts, work and life balance, and so on? Is it different from any other freelance work, do you think?
Oh, that's tricky because it's what I do. I can't really, I think it's important to note that the only jobs that are really going to matter or be around in another 5 or 10 years are where you're creating something, because anything that can be done without that creativity, there's going to be some automation that will perform whatever transformation is needed on that input and output. So we're all going to have to create, and we're all going to have to get better at doing that to order. Now, obviously, I'm not a Renaissance artist waiting for a muse to strike and come up with a glorious newsletter theme in the middle of the night and then write furiously till it's nailed. So I have to get up and do stuff, whether it's my own content because a podcast has to go out this week and I'm committed to that, or whether it's for a client who's expecting a piece that they've commissioned and it's got a hard deadline. So there simply isn't any room for that kind of creative block. I suppose the only thing I try to do is get ahead of it. And that's really all the things we've been talking about throughout this session. It's about not overscheduling, so you're not continually stressed and burned out and worrying. It's about getting adequate rest. It's about scheduling the leisure time, the family time, the things that feed your inspiration and your creativity. It's about the basic self-care of eating well, sleeping, getting exercise, getting rest. And even on the most recent question that we were just looking at, the continually learning and the sources of information, I would say, time permitting, and you have to make the time, don't go too narrow. You can actually become inspired by things that if something intrigues you that's maybe just outside of your niche, and it's not something you need for something you're working on straight away. But again, all the information in the universe is now one click away. So you've absolutely no excuse for not going down that rabbit hole, unless a deadline is literally screaming in your face, which if you've organized your time, hopefully it shouldn't be. It can be really interesting to just try that podcast recommendation that's something you wouldn't normally listen to, or try that alternative publication that has a different political view to you, but you just want to see how that argument is stacking up so that it can, rather than just being in an echo chamber. You need to be quite intentional about this, but that's the same with everything related to remote work and freelancing. No one's going to come along and say, this is what you need to read today. This is the video you need to watch today. You do need to think, am I being too narrow here? Am I just reinforcing my own views? Am I going too deep? Rather than, sometimes you need to go a little bit broader. And those are the things that will inspire you creatively. Or sometimes just stop working. Go for a hike, go for a swim, get up a mountain, go and look at a horizon somewhere. Sometimes you're not going to do anything by staring at a screen. If you have a complete block, the one thing we can do as freelancers, as remote workers, is change things up. You're not stuck in a cubicle with somebody paying you by the hour to tear your hair out and produce nothing. It might make much more sense for you to go and have a sleep, go and have a run, go and whatever your thing is. And you do need that self-knowledge and that self-awareness, but you can do that by trial and error as well. Okay, after that run, I felt terrible and didn't want to get out of bed for a week, so that's not my thing. But maybe next time I'll just go and have a siesta instead and then get up and then I'll be able to write. Or maybe you have a sleep in the middle of the day and you can't do anything after that because you zone out. So find out what you need, feed it to yourself, whatever that is. It might be music, it might be go and cuddle your kids for a bit, it might be go and talk to a stranger in the post office, or something. There are so many things that we don't know about ourselves until we're out there on our own, because we expect somebody else to set those boundaries for us in work and say, okay, this is we have meetings here, we have team building here, and we put these things in different buckets. You've got to deal with that for yourself when you're remote. It's a bit scary, it's a bit challenging, but it is so worthwhile and so much more rewarding and so much more productive at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. Well, honestly, guys, I would ask you to drop your questions now in the Q&A section here, so my lovely speakers can answer any questions that you might have. Also, we have the book here in the chat, so you can check it out as well. Just let me see if we have any questions. We have a question from Anna. It's a long one, so bear with me. You spoke about asynchronous work and focusing on the deliverables more than the hours that we need to give a certain company. I would like to hear your point of view on the correlation and the importance or lack of it between the country where the freelancer works and the salaries that the employer is willing to pay. Should there still be a salary range limited by the person's location rather than the experience or even the position? Interesting one. Who wants to take a part of it?
Well, I can speak from my own experience. I live in Spain, but I don't have any clients in Spain. because even though nice people ask me on LinkedIn, I can't write Spanish, not professionally, competently. So I don't work for any Spanish clients. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm working in a global marketplace. I don't expect my location to have anything to do with that. If clients need synchronous communication, I'll make myself available at a time to suit them. But most of the time with asynchronous work, it shouldn't matter where you are. It only matters what you can do. And I would say for a lot of people, you need to de-emphasize your location. Obviously, when it comes to employment and contracting and compliance and things like that, it can get messy. But the more you can do to globalize and internationalize your offering, for me, that's operating as a limited company out of Estonia. I can make a contract with any business in the world. I can take any currency they want. I can do a meeting anytime they want. So actually, it's none of their business where I am. And I'm not always in the place that says it's home anyway. So it shouldn't matter. People still have prejudices that they bring to the table. Oh, if I hire somebody in India or Africa or so, I can pay them less. We have to get away from that. And the fact is that anybody who's living in New York could go and live in India now and work, and they could enjoy those lower costs of living themselves. So why should they penalize somebody who happens to have been born in a different environment for them? It should only be about the work you can do and what you can deliver. And if you can write like a native, then you should be paid the same as any native speaker. It really shouldn't matter. It's a work in progress. This is again with a post-pandemic thing. What happens if the guy with the New York salary then moves to Delhi, but they've already got a branch there and they're paying people locally very differently? It's a tricky one organizations are going to have to solve. And I think it's going to mean some salaries coming down and some going up, and ultimately a convergence, but obviously paying people less because they don't need to be in an expensive, desirable location anymore. That's going to be unpopular, and it's going to take a while, maybe with contracts renewing and so on. So that's a longer term effect. I think we will see this balancing out over time. For now, you need to fight for it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, and I hope you got your answer there, but I couldn't agree more with you, Maya. And I see we have 4 minutes. So guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them there. We will respond to them here or after the event. You will all receive recording of this webinar, so everyone who registered can actually watch it and ask any questions. And I'll make sure they get to Domenico, Maya, and Daniela as well. But I would wrap it up now, guys, because I know we all have busy schedules, of course, and some of us have to, go for a swim, like myself. I'm going to go for a swim and, work it from there. But what we have learned on this webinar, amazing speakers. Thank you very much, guys. Stay amazing. What we have learned, all of us, I believe, is that we are in control. So we are in control of our lives. We are in control of our work, of our progress and growth, and of our time as well. So basically, things are going to be changing. We're always going to be talking about this life and work balance. But the most important thing that I myself personally got from this webinar is that we are in control of it and we can work on it. So thanks very much, guys, for being here with me today. I had an awesome time. And I think I've learned a lot from your experience and some of the strategies that you've mentioned. That's why I'm going to go for a swim after this webinar. But thanks, Domenico, Maya, and Daniela. Keep being amazing, guys, and have a great, great week.
I'm going to fly to Italy,
Thank you very much.
see you on the other side.
Yeah, see you. So we all have plans.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.